And hello again, and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it, and frankly as well. I'm Joe Spina, along with the Honorable James Carrigan of the American Dream, and Councilor-elect, Councilor-elect again. Congratulations on your #1 slot there.
Thank you, Joe.
It was an awful pleasure having you, and we're going to talk about the American Dream in a bit. But beforehand, I got to do Frankly Joe. It's over. Lynn has spoken. That is, 29% of Lynn's registered voters have spoken. Axiomatic is that the organized minority invariably defeats the disorganized majority, regardless. Congratulations are due to Mayor-elect Tom McGee and condolences to Mayor Judy Kennedy. Each have been and continue to be dedicated public servants who indeed love Lynn. The City Council welcomes Rich Starbard and Brian Field, while the school committee added 2 new faces in Michael Satterwhite and Brian Castellanos. The political landscape has been shaken. Who knows what the political future portends? Meanwhile, life goes on. To help us along, I'll make sense of it all, is Jim Carrigan, host of American Dream, and Council-at-Large Brian LaPierre. Thanks for being here, folks. Before we go anywhere, I want to take a little ride down the American Dream. So if we can put this up, Jim, I'm fascinated by your show because the American Dream is something that I've been quite aware of. If you take a look there, that is about circa 1925, and that's my dad and my mother and my older siblings, and that's a 3rd grade education. That's not being able to speak English, working hard. Take a look at this, Jim. You're going to love it. You see that girl in red? That's the American Dream fulfilled. That's my granddaughter, or my father's great-granddaughter. And look who she's rubbing with, huh? One of your guys.
The Bidens, Jill and Joe.
So we are ecumenical, by the way. And I just wanted to put that out because I think that's what you're trying to get at with your show.
Oh, it is. Oh, absolutely. But it's for everybody. I mean,
exactly.
Like your family. I don't know if you knew Ralph Louise. He was in Lynn. He was a realtor.
Okay.
He came to Lynn as an Italian immigrant. He couldn't speak a word of English. He went to St. Mary's in the 1st grade. He graduated from high school, #1 in his class. He was the valedictorian. That's the American Dream.
Exactly. You know, and I don't quite remember. I discovered a fellow who he worked for the DPW, I believe, in the city of Lynn. But what happened was he was born on Williams Avenue, and then he got married. He went to war, and afterwards he bought a house on Williams Avenue. And he lived on Williams Avenue until he was about 90-some-odd. He was one of the oldest fellows in Lynn on the retirement system. And he lived and died on Williams Avenue. He said, this is it. And he was happy, and he had a great life. That's the American Dream, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
You know, so we'll talk about that a little more. Now, pre-election, and I want to read what I said pre-election, and this is a takeoff, and we'll talk about post-election. Here we go. If McGee wins, is it pronounced Crichton? It's long I?
Yeah. Rep. Crichton.
Runs for McGee's seat, which leaves an open representative seat that will vacate a Lynn City Council seat that could lead to an opening on the school committee, and so it goes. Now, if Moulton challenges Senator Markey, then Danny Kael, among others, will vie for the 6th Congressional District seat, setting another chain of musical chairs. Don't you love it? Now, this is post. The great irony is that now that Senator McGee has defeated Judy, she's free to seek his seat. Wouldn't that be interesting? What do you think of that, James?
Well, I think it's basically a Democratic district.
Yeah.
So I think Judy would have a hard chance winning the Senate as a Republican.
But she could do it.
Oh, she can run.
Yeah. And she automatically makes the finals.
Probably, yeah.
You know, if Wong doesn't run, we'll say that's the only other possibility.
Democratic, primary
if she gets a free ride, don't forget she comes from Lynn, female, somewhat conservative. May work.
So does Brendan come from Lynn.
Yeah, I know that.
Somewhat liberal.
I'm talking about Saugus and Marblehead and Swampscott, a little more conservative than Lynn, don't you think?
I'm not sure about Marblehead. And by the way, Brendan's been over there a lot in the last few years.
I'm not saying that. He's a great candidate. We talked about it last night. He's a very good candidate. the point is that there's a potential irony
Oh,
here.
I think that's true, and that's true, and she could run for it. Anybody can run for it.
Of course.
Yeah, it's a big
Now,
district.
did you hear, this is rumor, I love doing my little graphics, and then we'll get on to business here. Did you hear, fulfilled, that's right, did you hear about, what's that say up there, Brian?
It says Congressman Seth Moulton's going to challenge Senator Ed Markey in the 2018 Democratic primary. The only trouble with that, Joe, is Markey's up in 2020, so
Is it?
Elizabeth Warren is going to be on the ballot
next year. I'm
glad that
for
we
the
have you
senator.
here
So
today.
if you're forecasting out to 2020, that would be the Democratic primary. That's when Ed Markey's up for election. That 6-year term is
That's a
over.
good point, though.
Yeah.
I'm glad you corrected
It would be
that.
2020.
But he is contemplating, and that gives him another couple of years to see the landscape. He's making a name for himself nationally, Jim.
Yeah, he is.
I thought he was really being considered for president at some point
Well,
in
his name has
2020.
been,
The name is out
has been
there.
banded,
So.
and I believe David Gergen is his sponsor over there at Kennedy School of Government.
And
They
he's
have
a
close
great
rapport.
asset, David Gergen. He's a great friend to have.
So how do you see it? I mean, how do you see his future?
Well, I like him, and he defeated
Obviously.
my good friend John Tierney. But, so I hope John's not watching this show.
Well,
But, I like him. One of the things I like about him is he's outspoken. He's willing to speak up for what he believes. You know, I love his status as a veteran, and I really respect his Harvard degrees. I mean, that's great paper to start
As
with.
an engineer, by the way, I mean, a scientist. I think he was a physicist. It's
That
not
I
like he was
don't- that
chopped
I
liver.
don't- That I don't know. Well,
Yeah, I
Harvard's
mean,
not chopped
he's a
liver,
bright
yeah.
kid. Went to Phillips Academy.
Yeah.
And I believe he got a master's also from Harvard.
I think he got 3 degrees from Harvard.
I believe he did. So he's not, he's not without credentials.
He's smart.
Yeah, his record of service
And
is
he's
really
courageous.
impressive.
Let me tell you a little story. You like stories about your friend, Tanny. The good friend of mine passed away unexpectedly, and of yours, Ralphie Cronin.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember, and I do not like going to wakes. In fact, I hope not to show up to my own. And I'm decided, well, I'll go a little early. So a little early meant that I was at Flax Pond. He was at.
Yeah.
That's a
I
pretty
was
good
there,
thing.
yeah.
Cuff him again. Yeah.
So here I am at Flax Pond in that line, an hour at least before it moved anywhere.
Right.
And I see Tanny walking to pay his respects. Now, you realize that he could have easily got in front of everybody with no problem.
Right.
He did not do that. He went to the back of the line, he said hello to everybody, as if he was just a regular person. That impressed me.
He was pretty.
Good, decent guy.
Yeah,
Very
he
good
was.
job.
So, tell me, what do you, let's talk a little bit about what transpired in the election, and congratulations once again to you.
Thank you.
What was the turning point? I mean, you obviously supported McGee.
I did.
Yeah. And I did the opposite, but that's okay. What do you think was the issue, the real issue that turned it for him? I mean, that was a stunning victory.
Well, I think taxes was a big issue.
Excuse me?
I think taxes. I mean, I think people are concerned about taxes, and she's the incumbent, so she's responsible for it. Whether she is or she isn't, that's what the
Okay.
voters think, I think.
Do you think he'll hold the line on taxes? Or can he?
I don't think so. I don't know what he's going to do. But I think he's got some real serious challenges coming up. And let's hope that he assembles a group of thoughtful people like himself who will try to come up with some solutions that will be equitable for the people of Lynn.
And I think we've made some attempts to do that in this last cycle. I think we have to get a handle on what the debt is actually, because I've heard different numbers, and they've gone from 8 million down to 3 or 4 million. So we did a Band-Aid approach, the council did along with the mayor's budget, this past spring with the trash fee and
Right.
enacting some of those creative things, and meals tax and action things. So it is going to be hard for the incoming mayor, no question, Mayor-elect
Those are only
McGee.
one-time solutions, too, right?
For this year's
Yeah.
budget, right, to
Yeah.
get us into 2018. And now, as he assumes in January, there's going to be a lot of hard decisions coming down the road.
Let me ask this. There's no dispute that there's a deficit.
Right.
The question is the size of it.
The size
Is that correct?
of it.
Yes.
There's no, from my understanding is this, and you correct me, either one of you, that the incoming is about a 2% growth factor coming in. Going out, it's about 3 to 4%.
3 and 4, right.
So there's a spread of 1 or 2%, but when you're talking about $300 million,
That's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah. We've got to start taking.
Now
it a
you
lot more.
proposed, and I teased you about this. You know that the meal tax that brought in exactly three policemen and a school teacher, $700,000,
Yeah, about 650, 700,000 annually.
which is
It's not a drop in the
1%,
bucket, but
2%.
it's right. It did save a few jobs that were on the chopping block.
now. How about the trash fee? How did you line up on that one? Did you think?
I had nothing to do with it, but
No, I mean,
listen. I support fees and taxes to support government to make the government run efficiently. I just don't like to see them dumped all on poor people. So that's why I support the progressive income tax.
So you are committed to that left-wing ideology that you.
I'm a left-wing nut.
And a lovable one at that. Brian, since you're in between the two of us,
politically speaking, or then so yeah, I'm on the end,
No,
so
you're
I
on
must
the
be
end.
I'm to the left of Jim right now, so I don't know what that
I
makes
gave
me.
Jim a sheet, and it's called Expectations, and if we can throw that up there, and I put this up because I think there's 5 things that you're going to have to deal with, these expectations.
Okay.
So take a look at the top on budget, closing the gap.
Sure.
What's your expectations on that one?
So I really think we've got to look at a trash fee. We've got to look at revenues. We do have to build up the Linway. I mean, I think everything is in future development, and I think the gap has closed to prevent layoffs right now. But when Senator or now Mayor-elect McGee gets in, he's going to be working on the budget almost instantly from day one in office. I think it's going to be a real process where he works collaboratively with us in order to make those tough decisions. I don't know what they look like right now. But certainly everything's on the table, and I think that's the approach. He wants to have an audit, I know, and see where there is areas
but wait a
to
minute,
cut.
let me stop you on that.
Yeah.
My understanding is the audit is by charter, must be done.
Yeah, it's like a
not
management
something-
audit
it's
that's set up.
mandatory.
Right.
So an audit has already been done.
Well, there's been a report.
You had one done by some
There was a report from a
outfit, did you
Philadelphia
not?
firm, right?
All right. And they, in effect, said lay off 30 people.
Yes,
They, in effect, said that you're not going to be able to give raises until
2022.
Right.
Or thereabouts,
Both of which
right.
are impossible.
They're unrealistic.
You're a
but-
labor lawyer, are you not? Or did I get it wrong?
I work with labor unions, but I'm not a labor lawyer.
Is there any possibility that they're not going to be, that obviously there's going to be collective bargaining, there's going to go, and there's going to be arbitration, isn't there? So it's impossible not to give raises.
Try to find the resources. You don't have to take it away from working people.
Okay. So what you're saying, in effect, is we're going to have to raise taxes. And you know what, Jim? I agree with that. I don't see the city being able to get out of its doldrums now without raising taxes.
Well, I think you have to get to yes too in a lot of different ways too, and you can look at the agreement and look at different municipal unions and things and come up with creative ways to try and avoid, layoffs and so forth.
And the unions
That's
may
true.
come up with some solutions too.
Sure.
The
There's
unions
health
may come up with
insurance,
some
there's
solutions.
pension
Well,
reform,
my
there's
point,
a lot of
wait,
things on
first
the
of
table.
all, my taxes went up.
They do. So did the value. Your value.
And I said that was going to happen.
Houses are
All right,
selling
so
very
it's like a
quickly.
shell game. In effect, you said, we're going to drop your tax rate, but we're going to increase the value of your home, market rate, right? So I end up paying $400 a year more on my real estate tax than I did the year before. So you already got that. You came up with the meal tax. You have the trash fee. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Thurgood Marshall Middle School has a lot of potential
For
to
what?
become senior housing. If that just that's a request for a proposal that's gone out.
$15 million, Brian.
That's
at
a lot of
best.
money. That's a lot of money, and that's
$15
going to
million,
bring
yeah,
in.
but the return on the amount of money coming in revenue-wise is 2 cops. It's the same
not
thing
at 15
on the
million.
Linway.
We take 15 million on that.
I'm gonna
That's a
become
lot
a
of money.
cop.
We're
Well,
hoping 6 to 8 million on that property when that comes into
It's
bid.
scoped out to be about $15 million.
But
correct?
that's more than 2 cops, Joe.
No, that's
that's
the
significant.
value of the property, then the tax rate against it, which generates.
But
Yeah, hundreds of thousands in new
Who gets the
tax
value
revenue.
of the property? The city does, right?
I tend to think
taxable
that you.
property for years
I
to
tend
come.
to think that
Same with
both of you are correct
Beacon.
about development being critical.
Yes.
The problem is that that's downstream. We have an immediate problem, and development is something that's coming downstream. It doesn't take care of the problem now.
What I would do,
Go ahead.
if I were Tom McGee, I would convene the smartest people I know from everywhere, and put everybody in a room and keep banging away about what you can do about this problem. I would pick Somerville as a very progressive city and a successful city. Now they've got public transportation that we don't have, but still, They're doing a good job. I would go to Somerville, in Chelsea, in Salem, and find out what is it that they do. I know Somerville's got some...
Everett, Malden, yeah, so many.
Somerville's
right.
got some good...
Right. Yeah, they
some
did a lot of
good
gentrification over there.
Right. I'm not talking about gentrifying the city. I'm talking about figuring out how to get revenue into the city.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So get all the brains together and then
All right.
see what they can come up with besides a trash fee and besides increasing the real estate
That's
tax.
on the margins, Jim. Those things that we're talking about, the meal tax.
I
and
know,
the
I know.
They're
I know.
on the margin.
But
The
what I'm saying is open it all up.
Here's where I think that they should be honest about things. And you're right about if you're going to have services, you have to pay for them.
Right.
Lynn is taking a disproportionate amount of social problems for many, many years, as opposed to the surrounding communities. Correct? Would you agree to that or disagree? Here's my argument. We have 17,000 students in the Lynn public school system. Very
You've
young
been
guy.
saying this for years, yes.
Once again, I'm going to go back to the same old story.
I think about 16.
Quincy has 9,700. How do you justify
They're a
it?
smaller city.
At 92,000?
Quincy?
Quincy's the same population as we are.
With a lot less Chapter 70 money coming in, too. I mean, we're
All
getting
I'm
our
saying-
share.
we talked about
And
this before.
FY19 is going to be the toughest year because you have to meet that last year, the net school spending obligation. Once we free ourselves of that, there is going to be additional resources. The FY20, the Beacon project's going to be underway. That's a lot of revenue coming in, you know, from what that's happening. And
Here's where I'm encouraged.
this is the tough time right now.
Here's where I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
We're moving toward being fully funded in our retirement fund, correct? Right now we're about 49% funded.
Yeah, that would
And
be
you have
the,
a pretty good guy there. You know, I believe he's got it.
right, Gary Brenner and
Yeah.
some of the OPEB requirements.
And I think it's 2034. I'll be long gone. Thank you very much, folks.
that will be fully funded.
But as
right,
far as my
pensionability.
grandkids are concerned, it's a good thing. So we're moving in the right direction there. That's a responsible. And
Yeah,
you have
and it's
responsible people
mandated to do that, correct.
And I see that things are happening. Actually, I think the city's looking pretty good, Jimmy, overall.
Yeah.
You know.
It's
And
got to get cleaner and it's got to get safer, and I think those are two real mandates that we heard on the election, the
major
campaign
issue.
trail.
But
you know.
if, like we discussed this off camera many times,
Sure.
if it's possible, and this is what I'm looking for our state and federal officials to recognize that they got to slap some dollars for the influx of students.
That's
to it.
always been true.
It's
true.
not happening now.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But, you know.
And it's
But they
particularly,
should. That's all I'm saying,
Yeah,
Jimmy.
I agree with you 100%.
particularly, Joe, and you know this from being in the schools, the
Exactly.
students that are the highest need students. So they're the ELL language learners, they're the special needs language learners. You have a $13,000 basically per pupil expenditure. What it costs to educate ELL learners exceeds that amount. Special needs, moderate to severe special needs, you could be doing $18,000, $20,000 a year on that student. We're losing the good students to charter schools and so forth, and we're only being reimbursed at $13,000 when the kids are costing a lot more to educate.
But the charter school, I agree with one point. I think the charter school formulation is wrong. If they take a kid and they get their full funding for that child, 13.6, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
and they send the kid back a week later, they keep the money.
Well, they
I don't
keep
buy
the
that.
seat. They keep the seat, and they don't fill it in due time. That's the question. That's the issue. You're
But
right.
shouldn't it be proportionality?
Yeah, and the money should always follow the student. If they
Yeah.
come back to
And that's
traditional
not-
public,
it's not happening.
It's not the case.
That's
right.
the problem with charter. That's going to be straightened
And KIP
out.
is looking to expand, and if they expand
They
and they
just
get what
bought
their
the Blood
wishes,
building,
we're in
I
trouble.
understand, right?
They just got Wheeler Street. Yep, they just bought. They're going to look at that, and in early December they have a proposal before the Department of Ed to expand to 2,600 students, and that will be another $17 million out of our regular school budget that we're already giving funding $17 million to annually. That will make it $36 million. I don't know how we're going to find that money to pay that.
Well, that's the key.
That's
and
key.
you know, see, the big ticket item is the Lynn Public Schools.
It is.
Big
It's
ticket
half
item.
of the budget, essentially. $300 million
I think
budget.
it's probably more.
It's
if you
probably
add-
more, a little more,
Yeah.
175 or so.
And if you add in health insurance and the rest of it, it probably goes higher. So, police right now, public safety, Jimmy, that's critical too. I mean,
Of course it
you
is.
know.
Then-
Yeah.
And right now,
Brian just said
we're
that,
sitting at what, about 100?
164 uniformed officers.
And
Some
what
of
about
the department
what about
looks-
the fire?
I think they're equal to that, maybe 150,
I think they actually have
slightly
more.
less. Is it?
I thought so, yeah.
They're
So they were
around that
looking
number.
in an ideal level. I mean, I think Tom McGee was looking for about 220 on both,
I mean, that would
and
be
the mayor was looking at 190. You know, so it was a discrepancy
historic
of about
proportions.
30
We haven't
per-
seen those numbers since the 90s, frankly. From the crime bill of 1994, Pat McManus went down to Washington.
The community policing program that President Clinton
I
instituted.
remember
Yes,
that.
yes, that's it.
Fabulous program.
That's it.
Everybody loved it.
The bikes.
Yeah, yeah. The police got to meet with the
Substations.
They were in the
neighbors,
community.
get to see the bad guys. The
Substations,
bad
right.
guys get to see the
Crime
police. They said, I'm
watches.
out of here. Yeah.
Gone.
Crime went down.
Yes.
Yeah, it did.
But that was funded by the feds for the most part. And then when they took the money away, they had to do the layoffs, and they stopped that program.
This is
It's
where
a great program.
No, it was, and it can be reinstituted if you have
Right.
some smart people going and screaming about those types of things. I'll give you an example. If you throw that up again, the expectations, if you would. And one of the categories I had there, and I think it's critical, Jimmy, and you can speak to this also. You see number 5? we're at a crisis level there,
The
correct?
opioid, yep. The
And in the
opioid
city.
All
epidemic.
across the country.
I was reading about Baltimore, Maryland, James, and apparently somewhere it will say 2013, 2014, there were 186 ODs. Now it's over 1,000. That's how it's gone cuckoo, and we're getting all this stuff. What's it called?
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl, but I never knew this. That is artificial.
Right.
It's a synthetic coming from China.
Yes.
They're the largest producers, which is ironic because they fought the Opium Wars against the Western powers who were trying to infect them in 1818. You're an American Dream guy. You know, and here they are, and you can't regulate it because nobody knows what the dosage is on it. And they're adapting it every time the Food and Drug Administration puts down a criteria, they change it. And it's causing all types of problems, and Lynn is being affected by it.
It's a huge crisis. And, you know, we've equipped the police with Narcan, for example. They're using it like they never have before. It's like saving lives. And it's just an epidemic that's run wild, as Jim said, not only in this city, but around the Commonwealth and across the country.
Oh, yes.
So what are the answers? I know Winthrop has a very good program. Winthrop has this team out there that just focuses on opioid prevention and treatment.
Oh, that's so you launched this a program.
Yeah, there's
after-
town manager James McKenna, and I should say the police chief, and that's all right, Jim. And they're doing some creative things in Winthrop. I think we have to replicate what's working in other places.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Now the funny thing is, in New Hampshire, from what I understand, is one of the states that has the highest incident, and you wouldn't believe that. Right. So it isn't as if it's to a particular community.
Right.
It's ecumenical.
Widespread.
One of the things that happens is a person gets into an accident and they're in real pain. You know, they suffer a back injury. So they're prescribed opioids, and they like them. They taste good, they feel good, you know, and they help deal with the pain. Long after the pain is gone, they're still getting the opioids. So then the doctor says, wait a minute, I got to cut these off. So then the person goes to illegal prescriptions and then to heroin. Heroin's cheaper than pills. That's one of the things that's happened. So the thing I would say to everybody is, if you get into an accident, watch the medicine that you take.
I can tell you that firsthand.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice.
Right.
But I think it's really important to think about that.
Well,
to piggyback on Jim's comment, there's a lot of doctors out there that change treatment plans for those who are injured. And what happens with the leftover prescriptions? They're not turned in necessarily to the right, and they get into the hands of the kids, of the parents who were, you know, in pain or having suffering. And then the treatment plan for that person has changed, and they're not returning it to the police station, for example. They're getting new scripts written, and they're on to another drug, while the other drugs are sitting in the medicine cabinet. That's a real danger.
But here's my understanding, and
Or they're being sold on the street illicitly, you know.
well,
street
heroin,
drugs.
as Jim pointed out, that's a natural substance. That's about $50,000, $60,000 per kilo.
Wow.
Wholesale to the drug dealer, as opposed to that synthetic, and you can pronounce it.
The fentanyl.
That's $2,500 per kilo. Yet you get $10 per bag on either one. So what do you think they're selling? You think they're selling heroin? No. And heroin in its pure form is not that debilitating to the body physically as this other stuff
Right.
is.
This fentanyl is a killer.
It is to the mind.
Yes. Yes, you're
It's a
right
street
about that.
killer,
But
fentanyl.
other than that, heroin is relatively.
You don't worry about your mind, Joe, but I worry about it.
Your mind's quicker than my mind right now. You know, what can I tell you? But it is a fascinating thing, and we ought to do some studies on it. Last night I mentioned to you, stream of consciousness, about the blue lights in Japan, but I was wrong on the other country, Scotland. And for what I understand is that the blue lights actually, the crime rates went down, the suicide rates went down. And I bring this up because Wayne Losey proposed putting up LEDs, and we talked about it the other night.
The adoption of a green community for Lynn, you know. Lynn's losing out. Lynn is really losing out on a lot of resources. Salem gets $900,000 a year adopted. Swampscott, little town of Swampscott, $800,000 plus to convert to become a green community. More efficient, more energy, energy efficient. The lighting is a savings over some time. You've got a grandfather in some high weight vehicles because they'll never pass the emissions or the code. But anything new coming into the city vis-a-vis vehicles, they have to be efficient modeled. So, and we're already meeting those expectations. They have to be small Ford Focuses, for example, not Grand Marquis when you're going around and doing inspections and DPW stuff. So I think we need to get there as a community.
But if you're going to save $400,000 a year, and I don't know if that projection is accurate, but we can always do the research
cost,
on it.
And then there's
inherent savings. And it's a $2 million outlay.
5 years.
I mean, huh?
5 years you are in the black when you adopt.
Point. So if you get a low interest note from the state or something to that effect, it's well worth it.
Yeah, of course it is.
It doesn't impact the tax rate. But we have a problem now with our bonding, from what I understand. Is that correct? Our bonding?
I think that's accurate. I don't think we would qualify for, because of the level of our bond status, we would not qualify and bond out.
Too much out there?
And not a good rating. So too much. I think the debt is coming off the books, but we're not credit worthy as we were a few years back. That's what I'm hearing.
So how do we
hot enough to build?
Yeah, but how do we propose to? During the election, they were talking about we're going to have to build a couple of new schools. Well, how?
Well, I think it's through the school building assistance program.
Most of the money's coming from the state.
It will be the state funded, and we can circumvent that bond rating because it goes out to the ballot to the voters, and they can approve something like that.
Brian,
and we're servicing debt, and we're getting rid of debt as new debt comes on.
Thurgood Marshall was they sold it at 18%.
80%, right?
They sold it at 18. Yeah, which 20%.
Right.
I'm sorry, 20% of 90 million or 18 million.
Well,
it ended up costing about 50.
Because of eligible costs, and I think that's where
but nobody defined
the
eligible and uneligible costs at the time. They painted this rosy scenario for 18 million bonded out. It was a good thing. So a little truth in advertising would help.
Whatever eligible costs.
So you can't go put in for like parking lots, landscaping, any extra amenities. It's just the square footage of the building that they'll reimburse us on, and nothing on the grounds.
A lot of stuff is discounted from it.
One of the advantages of having a new school like current Marshall Middle School is it makes it attractive for people to move here, to buy real estate here, and that increases the value of real estate.
No question.
And that's
but
a good thing.
Jim, what I think these folks out there would like to have occasionally is truth in advertising.
I'm all for that too.
And that's all.
That,
if people are willing to pay for things if they understand it. It's value, by the way, not cost. It's value.
Right.
And I think we do that in our lives.
Well, I think if we're going into 2018 with Mayor-elect McGee, I think there's got to be a wholesale change of what we did in 2017 to build 2 new schools, right? We've got to get the community back. We've got to do a grassroots campaign. We do have to make sure they're well informed, have community meetings, don't have meetings at 2 o'clock on a Thursday at City Hall, but maybe in the communities, bring it out. Maybe it's 1 school is the answer, not 2 schools. Maybe a location that's feasible for everyone to get behind. And those are the things we have to look at in 2018.
You went out in the community. I mean, you were very visible out there. And I give Tom McGee a lot of credit because I would go on my Facebook to look for something online. And what do I see? I see this, vote for McGee, vote for McGee. And I said, what is this? I mean, how do they know who I am, where I am? So, I mean, did you notice that?
I noticed. I'll give you an example of. I looked at the Washington Post and I just scanned an article, and it was like 5 in the morning, like last Thursday, and I'm at the computer, and all of a sudden, vote Tom McGee in Lynn, Mass. this Tuesday, and
exactly.
I said, how the heck am I? I clicked on it. I'm a Lynn guy. I'm curious, right? Politico. And it took me right to, would you volunteer and sign up to vote for Tom McGee? Exactly. This was a Washington Post article that I was casually reading, and boom, it popped up, and there it is, and then you built your database, and you build all that around that. So
my wife
huge
got
campaign.
One of those
Did she an alert?
CNN.
CNN, see, that online
I have to
advertising,
tell
a
you,
strong campaign.
that was impressive.
No,
I mean,
very.
everywhere I went. In fact, one of my, I didn't put it up. I don't know if Pedro has it. I had a hum. I did it last night. Here I am saying not dating. I did it earlier this week. And it had to do with the amount of money and the slickness of campaigns. And, is that instructive? Does that tell the voters that perhaps this person is not cautious with the dollar? And you made and Dan Kale actually made the point that, you really have to spend to get the message out there. He loved talking about you spending $11 million as opposed to, 20 million you spent the last time out of there. So actually, you're going in the right direction. You got the same amount of votes for half the dollars.
You got more votes for half the cost. Is that what you say 2 years later? So I must be doing something right.
It turned out to be a positive,
Yeah. No, campaigns are expensive. There's no getting around it.
Well, I told him, I said, how much did you spend on your campaign? I mean, it was pretty tough running against Air,
He still spent money running against
Yeah, and he did the same with Losey. Losey had a tough race, and he talked about Losey, spent $8,000, and the other guy had about 27 cents and something to that effect.
Right.
But, if you have to do it in order to get your message out, I guess you have to do it.
As a first-time candidate, I recall raising and spending $50,000 in a city council race last year. And I think we've cut that in half, but you're right. Maybe I've raised 20 and 25 and spent that much. And it's all in print and postage, frankly, a lot, and maybe some online advertising.
Well, I hope you're not allergic to me, James. I mean, being around one of these right-wingers can be drastic, But anyways.
But Tom McGee did something which was, I thought, really unique, where he had the grassroots strength of really being visible. He took no days off. He was really out in the community, Tommy McGee, at the events. I've seen him at countless things, and he had the workers behind him. And then he had this, kind of an assault on advertising and the mailings and the whole. So he did it both.
Here's the most important thing, and I noted two things: storytelling. Tony's Pub.
Yeah. Tony's, yeah.
Now Tony's Pub is a Lynn place. It's an institution.
Right.
So I'm there with my granddaughter and my son-in-law. They promise they like to go in there every once in a while, and they make terrific fried clams, by the way.
Oh, delicious.
And who walks in with his family but Tom McGee? He was there with regular people. These are voters. Those folks are going to vote. He was there. And I'm not Tom McGee. He was just there with my family. I saw the same thing at Capitol Diner. I went to Capitol Diner with Paul Crowley one day and Jimmy Abernathy. Now, Jimmy Abernathy's an interesting guy. He came up with a story about why he was so, supportive of Tom McGee Jr. And it had to do with that his older brother became ill and passed away, and Tom McGee didn't quite know him that well, took the time to go up to Andover to pay his respects. And not for any reason, there were no votes up in North Andover for him. It was just the right thing to do for West Leonard, former West Leonard. And his father was famous for that.
Really
legendary. And think. It just resonated when you said that. Tom McGee really is a regular guy who is a very patient politician. Some of us, we don't have the patience, but a Tommy McGee, and I remember having an event that he attended, and it was like kind of a quiet toward the tail end of the event. He was still there, and he was talking to a couple people, and he wasn't in a rush, and he just sat and listened, and I think that's a very good quality, a great attribute for today's politician, to really be patient, really listen. And I think one of them people was in Salem, frankly. They lived in Salem, but he's still not a Lynn voter, not a person there. But he gave that time, and like you're saying, he went out of his way to make time for people, and I think he did that throughout this campaign. That really resonated.
Well, it did. Because Judy was a very good candidate.
Oh, she's sharp.
And she's a bright woman.
Very sharp.
Competent woman.
Hard job.
So for him to beat her by that margin speaks volumes about what type of guy he has to be. He did not run against, as I like to say, chopped liver.
No, I take nothing away from her.
No,
it's a
not at all.
sign of the times as well. She's been 8 years, not only 8 years as mayor, but a 26-year elected official. I remember when Judy ran for school committee on Stickers in 1991, and she's really been in office ever since. That's a long career. And any time after that amount of time, especially eight years as mayor, Jim, you have to learn to say no.
Every time you make a decision,
upset people, and absolutely. So it's hard. Yeah. Good ride for her, though. Good run. Good run for the mayor.
And might not be dead yet, according to she says
She says, hang on to that phone number of mine. There's an open Senate seat, I
I think
hear.
that was a political mistake. She should be hanging on to their phone numbers.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Cute. He's not bad, this guy. Eh?
No, he's been around.
He's been dreaming.
Yes, American.
An American dream
Yes.
like that. Yeah, on top of
You
it.
guys are
You're getting
clever.
really quick. All right, so development is got to be on the table, and that
Oh,
seems to
absolutely.
be working in the right direction.
Well,
okay?
we put in that proposal for Amazon, so let's
so
try and
Beacon
get that.
Chevrolet is about to happen.
That's going to break ground this spring.
Okay, and what about the possibility up by the General Edwards
Yeah,
Bridge?
the old gear plant is in
And that-
motion. You know, that's part of
supposed to be
that
1,000
whole.
units.
Yeah, I think
Scoped
even,
at 1,000, something
more
like
than
that. Is that
right,
accurate?
right.
So that's all
Big.
good and well. You say that we're going to have to reevaluate, take a look. What about what Jim is saying is that if revenue doesn't come in from the state and the federal government, I hate to tell you, Brian, and folks out there, you may not like it, but you may have to jack up a few more beans, right?
Well, I think if instead of just going to the revenue or to the taxes, I think we have to take a hard look at everything and see where the opportunities are. And we've cut, and we have been very efficient in some of the lean in the mayor's budget and these departments. That gets to a point where you're trying to save jobs, how do we build up, the DPW and the cops and the fire?
Question.
Very difficult without
85%
raising.
of the budget is salary.
Correct.
Consequently, the only way you can substantially reduce it is to cut manpower and woman power.
Yeah.
That's not going to sit well with not too many people.
Or you can increase revenue. Don't forget, if you cut jobs,
Yep.
you're cutting services.
That's right.
And we can't afford to cut services.
No.
So what do you propose for revenue?
Well, what about grants? My pal John Taney told me when he was in Congress that rarely ever did he get a request for assistance with grants for the city of Lynn. He got them from other communities all the time.
Salem, Beverly,
Rarely
sure.
did he get them from Lynn. And you can, the community policing thing we were talking about earlier, we could fund that with a grant. I mean, somebody's got to apply for it. Somebody's got to bird dog.
Very good.
The council had before it, I remember, about 2 years ago, a proposal to have a federal lobbyist in Washington. And, everybody said that's just more money, spending money. That person could bring in a ton, if you got the right person, could bring in a ton of revenue into the city.
So let me get this straight. If in fact, and you've talked about this, by the way, have you not?
A little bit, yeah.
If you fund a position to grant write and seeking grants, what you're saying seeking revenue. Revenue is not taxes per
And
se,
new
it's
revenue.
money.
Right.
All right,
I'm saying
let's talk-
revenue.
Revenue is different.
Right.
Taxes is a means of deriving revenue.
Right.
So if you go to Washington and you go to the State House and you look up and find out, and therefore you fund what you were talking about, community policing with the guys with the bike. They look
Right,
cute, by the
right.
way, with the little Bermudas on.
I'm sure they're going to like that one.
They did. They were, and they
they
drove
like the
around the
bikes, yeah.
reservoir,
Right.
and made sure that nobody was violating that. No, actually, I thought it was great. The visibility was
And
terrific.
they had little police stations around the
Yeah,
city.
the little substations.
And the
on Eastern
satellite
Ave.
police stations, that
they
was a
were,
good
yeah.
concept, too.
Yeah.
And we actually had libraries that stayed open,
Right.
Yeah.
And
The
that's another one.
branches.
It would be nice for us to read. I go to the Swampscott Library once in a while, and I'm impressed by it, by the way. And we have a beautiful structure. That library by the Commons is an architectural gem.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Another area of untapped revenue potentially in 2018 will be these medical marijuana dispensaries
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
approved last year.
You know,
They're yet to open.
really believe that?
I believe at least
That many people
between
are gonna,
500,000 and it's what the city negotiates in a host agreement.
But who-
So we're going to get 4 to 6% of their annual sales. So that's going to be millions of dollars.
But there's only a couple of 100,000 in the state that qualify for medical marijuana.
Yeah, but there's
That's
not
all.
that many dispensaries, especially in the North Shore. So they're going to be making good use out of that, of the 2 that we've
So
approved.
people are going to lay out. That insurance doesn't cover it, does it? Or does
Yeah,
it?
some insurances, yeah, if it's a medical.
So But the real issue is it's gonna lead to recreational marijuana. Let's be honest about it.
Possibly. I mean, it's
yeah,
been
that's the
approved in
ultimate
the
goal, 'cause
Commonwealth.
that's where the
Yeah.
profit margin becomes.
Yeah, I think they're leaving it up
Not
to
on
local
people with
jurisdictions to
glaucoma, I
approve.
mean,
but- Right, right.
So
Well, the voters approved that last November. So.
I realize that. I mean, whatever your name
Yes.
is. I
yes.
need to,
ticket
I need
chopper.
To sleep.
Chopper
Well, why
ticket.
you-
Ticket chopper.
Why you?
Just call me Top at the ticket.
Oh, yeah. Whatever. You're the #1 vote guy there, aren't you?
I was.
Speaking of which, what's your future?
My future is to have dinner with my wife for the first time in 8 months
Good
tonight
point.
after the show. But immediately, yeah. I mean, that's where I'm
This
at.
is for Sir James. This segment coming up.
Okay.
You can
I can
chime
weigh
in.
in too.
Witty. It's time for Witty. Pedro, wake up. There he is. One possible conclusion the social scientists can draw is some do and some don't. What do you think of that one, James?
What do I think of it? Oh,
That was Ernest, whatever his name is. Rutherford?
Rutherford. Yeah.
Yeah. How about the next one there? You have to do some reading here, Brian.
Oh, sure. What can be asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. That's by Christopher Hitchens.
One of my favorite liberals, by the way. He died of cancer prematurely. You remember him at all?
No, I don't.
He was a great writer. His brother, I believe, was a conservative, and he was a liberal. It was a fascinating combination. Scroll down some more on that. We're not going to just have two of them there.
The third bullet.
This is from.
Yeah, through.
Yeah, here
Oh,
we
you've
go
got
with. This is yours, James. You can read, James.
Top one.
Democracy does not guarantee equality of conditions. It only guarantees equality of opportunity.
That's true. No?
Would that were true.
You just don't like the name Irvin Kristol because you know he's part of the National Review. He's one of those neocons, right? Only imbeciles, talking about myself here, only imbeciles never change their mind. That's an old Irish proverb. Came from York County, I think. Go ahead.
All right. How about moral indignation is jealousy with a halo? H.G. Wells.
Don't you love that
Yes.
one? Huh? That's a classic. And last but not least, James.
A goodly number of scientists are not only narrow-minded and dull, but also just stupid. I like that one.
To the point.
James Watson.
And that's our
Good
witticisms.
stuff. Good stuff. I like the witties.
You like the witties?
I like the witties.
Wait till you get to the comments.
These are Spinisms.
Oh,
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
But here, commentary, particularly the first one. We're going to get into this one. It says, hello, Joe and Paul. Watch your 1025 show, and being what you may call a political junkie, I found your dialogue very interesting and, of course, thought-provoking, to say the least. Lynn has never been a city without political controversy, and you both have hit the nail on the head with your comments about the city's unions being overly involved and who runs the city. On that note, I'm going to leave it up to you, both of you, who are union folk.
Yeah.
Has the unions have too much to say in the city?
No.
No.
That answers that one.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fair characteristic. I think the people speak, whether they're families or part of unions. I'm not so sure, but I have a lot of teacher support across Lynn. They're individual teachers who care about their community and they're involved in Lynn. And I think the stranglehold is not. I think it's exaggerated. Comments like
So
this.
do I. So do I. Unions do a lot of good. We were talking about development. Jeff Crosby, who's president of the North Shore Labor Council, he used to be president of IUE Local 201. He got his national union to come up with the money to fund that development on Washington Street.
Yeah, the Gateway Project.
Yeah, he did.
And that,
71
Now, that's
units.
a big deal because
Yeah.
people talk about development in Lynn for years and years and years. Where is it all? He got that done.
But that also has
And that's
a lot.
union money.
And
That's
a lot,
true, but it's
right,
also guaranteed.
And Jim's
Not that there's some terrific subsidies going into there also, because the folks going in there's 2 and 3 bedrooms.
Well, there's
Right.
some there, yeah, but to Jim's point, this is AFL-CIO, the national, where it's the members' money that they're investing in to build this infrastructure.
But
they
I
don't
understand
need
that.
to, but
they can't lose. It's a no.
What do you mean they
it's
can't
not
lose?
a
Well,
risk.
it's tax
because
tax
the
dollars.
government is subsidizing the units.
What I'm saying is, it's not that you can't lose. Jeff Crosby took the initiative to go out and find some money to bring some housing and jobs to the city of Lynn. That's the kind of thing unions do all the time.
And believe it or
Wait a
not,
minute. Wait a minute. Slow down. I happen to be a fan of unions with qualification. Okay, and you know that.
Yeah,
you've known me for a long time. I think it's vitally important that people have protections against
course,
avarice. Okay,
Right. Workplace.
But I'm also, across the board, I'm not a fan of monopoly or oneness or concentration of power, whether it be government, unions, or corporations. I just have an aversion toward monopoly. I think that it takes competition out of the equation. You get a bad product for a high price. Choice is, to me, everything. Now, maybe that's an old philosophy. But unions are necessary.
The project that Jim references, though, it's so important that we drill down a bit on the Gateway project. Tom Bauer, who was the developer, wrote a check and single-handedly saved the programs at Lynn Tech and the E-Team and the training so that, kept it alive. It's like a $100,000 windfall that the builder is investing in the community. And those things
Jeff
are
Crosby
not...
negotiated that.
Exactly. And those things get lost
that's a great spin-off, by the way. Developers coming in and do spinning off like parks or...
Yeah, community benefit agreements.
That to me is a terrific, wise move by corporations and any developer, in my view.
Oh, it is. I think it's
and
good.
that's what we wanted with Market Basket.
It's good for business.
Their thing was to hire local help, right? So 86% of the workers at Market Basket are from Lynn. And that was their sort of, community benefit agreement. We'll come in and we'll have a tax incentive, to build here. They don't come in without a TIF. Any community that wants Market Basket, you've got to sign off on a TIF, and which is a tax incentive financing, incremental financing. But in return, we're going to pay Lynn workers a good rate. We're going to have management positions, they're good salaries.
And they're going to spend money in Lynn.
Yeah, there's almost 400 people that work there.
Speaking of which, I have not been there. Have you been to the new Market Basket?
Come on, Joe. We could go for
I
pizza.
love the guy's story. I mean, by the way, it's not a union, right? It's not a union shop. But boy, he knows how to treat people.
Certainly does.
And the food is great. The work is wonderful. Yeah, you should go there.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let me give you another little story, and I love this one. Brian and I, on occasion, would go shopping. And would go into a Market Basket or wherever. Actually, it was Target. And, would put everything in the basket that we wanted.
We thought we wanted.
Just got caught us. And then we'd stop and look at each other and walk out. That was the end of our shopping, right?
It was quite a shopping experience with you, I will say. So we thought we needed a bunch of things, and then we'd get the cart and get to the checkout and say, well, we really don't need this. Can we survive without this?
Put it all back.
And we'd save $100. It would save $100.
Put it all back.
And then it was Joe and I doing some holiday shopping, I think, some years ago, and we ended up with a Slurpee, and we split the cost.
But it satisfies your shopping urge,
I don't have a shopping urge.
Well, obviously. I'm kidding. I have to tell you, when they say liberals aren't fun, they're wrong.
That's wrong. They're wrong about that.
You have a sense of humor?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
And I called myself a left-wing nut earlier, and that's because
By the way,
I am.
Well defined,
Yeah, he doesn't hide from it.
But I sincerely believe in what I advocate about liberal philosophy. I don't think it's just something that you do. If you follow that philosophy, I mean, I grew up at St. Mary's in Lynn. I mean, we all come from different religions. But we forever heard about help the poor. We were poor ourselves, yet we'd find a penny in our pocket to throw in the box to send to down south or some other place. There's nothing wrong with that, and we certainly shouldn't be feeding billionaires extra billions at the expense of people who need resources.
You're talking about crony capitalism, which I despise with a passion. And one of the things that bothered, and this is what bothered me. This is the thing that bothered me about the current state of the Democratic Party, and for that matter, I don't see a dime's worth of difference, to quote a genius back in George Wallace, if you remember correctly, between the Democrats and the Republicans. When I see Bush and Clinton kissing each other, I say, wow. And I'm offended by that. There was a fellow from Wisconsin, I believe, maybe Minnesota, who I adored. His name was Wellstone. Do you remember him?
Paul Wellstone.
Paul Wellstone went down on a Holly Hayo Silva.
Oh, he was my hero. He was the best.
He campaigned looking like a regular guy, and he was a regular guy. He was a professor, and another guy, Proxmire, from that particular.
William Proxmire from
Those
Wisconsin.
were honorable men. Jackson from Washington, the state of Washington.
Right.
These were Democrats who were people's people. I love Huey Long. You know that.
Populist Democrats.
But I
Tom
cannot
Harkin.
deal with the Goldman Sachs elitist, and there's a terrific article. I hope you get it, James. And you folks out there, do yourself a favor. It was written by Consonetti, I believe, and it has to do with the Obama Foundation, where they got together, and they were so far removed from the common man that it was they didn't know what to do. They were having Chablis, and they were having their caviar, and they were doing yoga classes and things of this nature, as opposed to trying to identify with the folks you've been identifying with all your life, James. You're a liberal of a different sort. You're not a liberal in that. When you talk about Taney, he's a liberal of a different sort. Yep. And you always have been the same. I admire that. Jane Cale, she's a wonderful lady, okay? A liberal of a different sort. Not one of these phonies on Marblehead Neck, who would nuke folks coming from Lynn that might upset their diversity, as they're going to the border there.
It's funny too, Joe, because you mentioned the progressive, and out of the polls yesterday, I was going poll to poll, and I saw collections of signatures, right, to get things on the ballot. There's a fight for $15 an hour. There's paid family medical leave. There's a tax on the millionaires for next year. These are all real-life things that can improve the lives of a lot of folks.
Exactly.
Right?
And I have to cut you short only for this reason. You guys were so great, so entertaining.
Did we
We're
fly?
plumb out of time.
We're out of time that quick? Wow.
James, I'd like to have you back again.
Sure.
And you,
Be delighted.
I don't want to see you ever again. No. Congratulations. For all of us here at Lynn Community TV, you have a great week.
That was fast.
Yeah,
wow, that flew by.
Goodbye.